Hi, thank you so much for asking me to give this talk, this presentation on my experience and my thoughts about the importance of entheogenic medicines in modern day culture. I am a firm believer that it is here on planet Earth, gifted to us from our mother, from Pachamama, for us to accelerate human consciousness into to clear blockages that have caused us to forget where we come from, who we are, and our connection to all of life. From my experience and my perspective, American culture specifically, but modern day culture, everyone is in this egocentric type of paradigm where everything is about us, our inner world, how everything's affecting us, what will we achieve, striving, dog eat dog. And I've just grown up in that world, and I also grew up in experiencing kind of the far reaches of what a human can experience as far as trauma and extreme adversity, life-threatening situations, mental illness, familial generational dysfunction. And so I believe that when someone experiences extreme versions of humanity, it kind of catapults them in a fast track to another paradigm, because what they're living in is not working so much. There's so many holes that you're forced to seek help. You're forced to seek outside yourself. And so I'm very grateful for how difficult my path has been. And I don't think it's not our fault. We are just born into this time. We're born into this narrative of, it's you, yourself, and you, and we're individualistic, not really relying on the system supporting us, not relying on our communities, being afraid of each other, being in competition. And then you put the trauma on top of it. Of course I was going to end up dysfunctional. Of course I was going to be suffering. It's like, I almost feel that the people suffering with quote unquote, mental illness are the ones that are really feeling the totality of what's happening, of the suffering in the world, and in not having it being properly mirrored to them. And so it creates this disconnect. And I've been in therapy since I was 13 years old. And I mean, I have a relentless spirit that was striving to heal and to evolve and to find something. It's like I was seeking something, relief, reprieve, truth. I just knew there had to be a greater healing available to me. I just knew that I was destined for something more than the life that I had been living in self-destruction and waking up, with gut-wrenching hangovers and turmoil, self-medicating. I just knew something deep in my soul knew. But after 22 years or 20 something years of personal development, I got so desperate, even though I had made some progress and I had learned about non-ordinary states of reality kind of before. And I found myself catapulted into these worlds where academics and researchers and colleagues and peers were talking about these different ways to access the subconscious mind. And I'm like, okay, well, I've kind of been doing that already in certain therapies and meditation. I was a yoga teacher. Okay, so I was understanding this, but it really began to call me deeper when I learned about psychedelic medicine being really powerful for trauma resolution, and for healing. Really, I was in it for the healing. And so I began to get really interested in divulging information, and I began to have dreams about ayahuasca. And I had really no idea about ayahuasca except what I had seen on a documentary. But the dreams were so vivid and so profound. It was like sounds of rainforest and snakes and the water and birds and creatures just making all those jungle noises. And I was afraid. I could feel the presence of the medicine. And I woke up in the middle of the night and I texted one of my man friends who was a medicine man, who never invited me to a ceremony, but had mentioned and planted seeds about this work. And I was like, oh my God, is ayahuasca like evil? Is it dark? I was so scared. It was so strong. And he just laughed at me. He's like, oh, it must really love you. It sounds like it's calling to you. I'm like, oh my God. And I continued to have dreams about it, where I would even go into other states of reality in my dream, like a psychedelic state. And I just didn't understand. And so I sought out to go to a ceremony, but no doors opened, even though I had lots of friends that participated and even ones who ran ceremonies. And I'm like, why won't they let me go? And they're like, oh, no, Robin, it's not for you. You're in a growing phase of your business. Like, it's going to take you out. You're going to need all this downtime. I was like, fine, whatever. And then somebody had introduced this idea of the toad medicine, the bufo alvarius, and said it was a game changer. And when I'm interested in something, I research everything I can find, every YouTube video, every website, and I started ordering books from professors who are writing about the topic. I was studying stuff from Martin Ball and James Orrock and some other people in the community. And sure enough, all doors started opening up wide for me to step into this work, into this experience. And I was very terrified. Luckily for me, the facilitators were very professional. They did a lot of preparations. And it sounded like it was a really big deal. Like I was about to have a psychic surgery and possibly an exorcism. And and so I signed myself up. And coincidentally, a week before I was about to go into the ceremony, I discovered that I had a tumor in my eye, in my head, behind my eye, that was the size of my eyeball, and that I needed to have surgery. And so it was kind of auspicious that I'm going into this psychic surgery right before I'm going into this real surgery. And I just, I had just gotten to the point in my life where I was willing to do whatever it took. And I was willing to trust for the first time in my life. And I thought to myself, well, I cannot trust, and I can, not have the experience, or I can trust and maybe have everything, find everything that I was looking for. And so I was terrified, and I took the medicine, and I had to go 2 rounds because I had some deep armoring of trauma. And I came out of that experience just completely bowing with my whole being. Everything that I had fought so long for in my life, believing in a greater love, believing in a power greater than ourselves, believing in healing, believing in my victoriousness, was all revealed to me in a visceral way, like in direct gnosis, a direct experience. And I had seen my life flash before my eyes, and saw all the tragedy, and saw the just tragically beautiful humanness that I was. And I just felt so grateful, and I cried tears with my whole body, like no story, just tears, just crying. And it felt so beautiful, this type of crying that was just coming from the inside out, was such relief. And I purged decades of trauma, literally purged. And I had to surrender to that moment. And when I surrendered to that, I was shown the infinite totality of God. And I experienced it like this flowering unfolding of infinite bliss, that just, there was no stop, there was no end, there was no deeper surrender. All you could do was keep surrendering. And that was what life was this beautiful pulsation of deep surrender and love and ecstasy, horrific ecstasy, just horrifying beauty, like ineffable. And I came out feeling totally held by all of life, by all of earth, every drip of spit coming out of my mouth being taken care of, and just feeling like I was reborn. And so you can imagine that experience expanded my consciousness rapidly, and it takes a very long time for the dust to settle. It's very, very, very powerful, and it drew me. And a month later, I felt that I had more work to do. Most people would not want to go back and do that again, but I just, I knew that there was more for me. I knew there was more life for me. I knew there was more freedom. And so I signed myself up again. And after that second session, I felt really called to be of service to the community. I learned on my path throughout 12-step programs that the best way to give back is to get involved and to be of service, and to you get to know people. And that's what I did. And all the doors opened wide. I found myself being trained extensively with some of the world's most experienced facilitators of the toad medicine in Mexico. I had my face and my ass served to me many, many times. And I learned great humility. How this, I believe this pertains to being a benefit for collective consciousness and for the world, is that it is catapulting us and accelerating us through stages of consciousness faster than we can on our own. I did 22 years of therapy, hardcore therapy, boot camp style, seminars, institutions, rehabs, all these things, yoga, all this stuff. And I still just couldn't break through. I would make progress, but I still had occasional suicidal ideation and rage and PTSD complex. And it wasn't until I found these medicines that I really, really got to reconcile my divinity and who I am in spirit, who I am in the grand scheme of things, both very big and godlike, and also very small and finite in this human body. And that my place was important, and everybody's place is important. And it began to awaken me to the connectivity of all of life. And it's a gradual process. Every day it opens up more. I think this is so important because for us to find greater harmony and to usher each other into a new stage of consciousness, and create a new world, a new paradigm, a new way of life, it requires us to wake up at deeper and deeper levels, like a soul cellular level, so that we can feel the water that we're drinking, the sunset that we see, the earth that we touch, the way that we affect each other, the preciousness of looking upon our child's face. It's just wakes you up and helps us to remember something very important that I can't even tell you right now because it's ineffable. There's this deep universal truth that we all embody, that we all are stewards of, that for one reason or another, you can look through history and guesstimate where and when that happened, but we have fallen from consciousness, fallen from our connectivity to our divinity and our truth. And these medicines, whether it's 5-MeO or the other plethora of sacred entheogenic gifts, it allows us to remember again and again and again until we can really embody it and live in that way and be a beacon of light. I cannot tell you how many people have responded to me positively just from the inner work that I've done. Forget the work that I get to do with them, but just by being who I am and in the energy, the frequency that I'm able to live in, which is not perfect, but it's 1,000 times better than it was when I was going through very dark, hellish times. It feels like beauty. It feels like really that the work that I do and the worlds that I get to traverse or have had the privilege to traverse directly affect the people around me. And then those people are going to affect the people around them, and so on. It's a huge ripple effect. And one of the things that was revealed to me in some of my journeys was that all is well, all is perfect. We don't even have to change the earth if we don't want to. The only reason to change and grow and evolve and to create a new earth is for the pure joy of doing it. And that's it. So every ounce of love or positivity that we utter out of our mouth, that we effort towards others, is just extra. And it's so much extra, and it's so beautiful and so profound and so necessary. And so I feel really called to introduce particularly leaders to these powerful ways, to expanded states of consciousness, because it is them who need to wake up. It is them who are going to go out and then make more leaders. If they are already in leadership positions and places of authority and privilege, and people are listening to them, following their lead, oh, how beautiful would it be for them to be in right relationship with all of life. And there's some majestic intelligence that each one of these medicines has that is specific to what we need. It's like a specific piece to the puzzle. And I'm not insinuating that everybody is meant to take medicine. Maybe they're not. But it is here for people who have the courage and who feel called to it and have a job to do. Some people are followers and some people are leaders, and it's just like this dance, I believe, that we get to play. And so if someone feels called to experience an expanded state of consciousness and to explore their divinity and the sacred mysteries of the universe, it's a privilege. It's a I can't imagine, I might be biased, I can't imagine a higher privilege for a human being to have. It is a sacred honor, and with a great honor and privilege comes great responsibility as well. And so when people are allowed, gifted to peer into these great mysteries on a soul cellular level, on an embodied direct gnosis level, there is a responsibility to then go into the world and be a certain way, and to be, I believe, in a good way, and to learn what that means with humility. So that, in my perspective, requires being in community, having mentors, having colleagues, being in dialogue around what now, so what. Yeah, and so in that way, from the integral perspective, it's so important because it takes us out of the egocentric mind into the we, the us, the like whole systems that we live in, and how each movement is like rippling outwards, every action. And we get to the thing that the toad teaches specifically, so we get to choose and choose again, choose and choose again, every moment, just choosing again, choosing again what kind of world we want to create, how we want to live. It's so isolating to only be in your tiny box, and when you awaken to the totality of the universe, it's shocking. It's shocking and profound, and you can never be the same. You never ever be the same. The dark shadows that you may have hidden before you can no longer hide in. You're not alone anymore. You know that you are living in a divine organization that is so much bigger than you and me and us and the work we'll do together. Yeah, and so it's in my heart to continue to honor these ways, and I just keep having the voice come into my mind that says, like, stewardess of sacred portals, stewardess of sacred portals. And I feel that is one of my missions, is to be a great stewardess of these sacred portals, so that the next wave of leaders and ceremonial facilitators who come through can be in right relationship, cannot get lost in the grandiosity that some of these medicines can do. Like we know in the conscious development, when you expand your consciousness so far, so rapidly, it can have like a rubber band effect, and you can go backwards into more of a toddler type, egocentric, me kind of state, and that can happen. And also there is the temptation for greed and power in these realms, because it's so sacred. Anything sacred can be exploited. Anything sacred can be exploited. And so I feel it is one of my most cherished missions is to be an example of a better way, to be an example of how to be in right relationship with these medicines and with the earth and with each other. And all we can do is the best we can, and enjoy the ride.